Hi guys, welcome back to Christian Cast where I build bait so you don't have to. Today I've got the gloves on because this is going to be a very special build. I've never done something like this. I actually modeled a Swimbait, two-parted. I've never done that. Most of the swimbaits that I've done had a lip, so it's like a swimbait crankbait mix. And what is also new is I actually casted my own silicone tails. So I'll show you the form once I set you guys up on the desk, and I'll show you also how it is mounted in the lure itself. And this lure is prepared for airbrushing already, so I don't want any finger grease going on before I start the first layer. That's why I have gloves on for the intro today already, and we'll start this build straight away. I'm really excited because it's something big. I've never done it. We're gonna try something new with scales. I actually bought a loofah, like a back scrubbing thing, and I took it apart. We're gonna use that for the scale optic itself because it's got a little bit bigger hole diameter than the window mesh that I usually use. And I would like to try to do a two-parted or three-parted scale pattern on this lure that I use three colors, first grounding it with silver, just generally, and then using some black and white for some details in different spraying angles. So we'll see how this goes. It's going to be a quite easy paint because it is still a prototype. I have to test it in a lake because I actually took it out, tried to put it into the river, but through all the rain that we have had, the action isn't great because we've got really high currents and it just doesn't do what it actually should do because a swim bait often gets used in lakes or quieter waters, targeting pike and things like that, and that is not what we would be going for in a strong current river. We've been having a lot of rain, and that's why it is even stronger than usual, and that's why this bait wouldn't work in those territories. So we're gonna try and take it out to a lake. I'll try and make a short just about the action, and maybe we still have to improve something on this lure, but I'm also gonna try and make a three-parted version of this bait itself. And we'll straight away head over. I'll put you guys on the desk. We'll look at how I mounted the fin itself and the mold that I made. And I've actually got two fins drying at the moment. We'll open them up in the end of the video. They are in a browner tint because this was a clearer cast. And I think that we're going to be going with a lot of brown tones for the lure today. And we're going to try and get that fin built into the lure as well. So head over, put you guys on the desk, and we'll get started. And I'm really excited for this build because it's quite big and a lot of surface to paint. So welcome back to the desk, and now I'll just show you guys a little bit what I did on the lure. And I also mounted a 1.5 millimeter main stainless steel bar to hold the eyelet screws and the hardware in place, that we've got something stronger because this is a bigger bait, so most probably you will be ending up getting bigger fish. And the other thing is I actually made a mold. So I don't know if you guys can see it. It is a very thin mold. It is actually a 2 millimeter thick tail, and it has got a little bit of a area that is stronger, where we have made a cutout that you mount into the bait itself. So it looks like a little bit of a T if you look at it from the top itself. I've also been playing around with the ironing settings of my printer because, as you can see right here, we had the ironing setting that really goes around and not the grid ironing setting of the printer itself. But I might do a video on that with preferable ironing settings for your printer. So this tail itself, the optic, you actually see the 3D print lines on it, and I've got a second version with the other ironing settings that I'll show you guys in a moment. But here you see What I mean, if you look how the light reflects, you have got the print surface on your tail as well. So I actually played around a bit, and this is the second tail from the other mold, and as you see, the surface is really clean. You barely see any print lines on this. You see it very lightly that it's a bit rough if I try and focus there. But it is really not at all anything that disturbs me. So I'm really happy with how this tail turns out, and I had two molds of this version. So I actually casted two brown tails that we will be taking a look at once they are dry, and that's going to be along the video at the end when we actually build everything together for this lure today. And otherwise, I'm just going to show you, so the tail itself, you can actually pull quite strongly on these sides, and you see I made like a T out cut, so we've got a little bit more space at the front, and you can swap out your tails quite easily if you just drag them through like this. And I actually also made the option of putting in a pin that fixes your tail, but I'm not even too sure if I will be using it because they actually fit quite well, and you can tug on them, and through the fishing use itself it won't be coming out unless they somehow get hooked by a fish or something like that. But you won't be losing the tails during fishing if you just use them normally. So we're going to be taking a look at that. If you want to, you can still add a pin right there, but I don't think I will be doing that because it's another thing that you have to look out for when you do the clear coat and things like that. And now I will take apart the lure because we already prepared everything, and we just have to pull out this pin, and then we'll start grounding the bait in a moment, and I'll get you guys back. We'll go over with a normal white coat, and then I'll see what I do today because I'm not too sure, because this is still a prototype. I'll also show you guys how the weighting is. It is at the moment really barely floating on the surface, and I hope that through the clear coat itself it starts sinking. So we'll take a look at that as well in the outro, and then we'll see how this bait actually works. I'll try and go out, maybe do a bathtub test, I don't know yet, but I need a little bit more space for testing this lure. So I think we will actually drive to a lake and I'll test it there and see how the action is. So as I said, we are gonna go ahead and ground our bait with some white to just make a clean surface, which we can then use for the rest of the lure. So straight away go ahead, grab our head, and just add a nice coat. So that's going to be the first layer that I add. I'm going to go over it again, that we really clean up the lead holes and everything, and now I'll just grab the tail and do the same. So that's going to be the tail in white for us. And I'll add the second coat, and then once we start adding a little bit of color, I'll get you guys back and we'll take a look at how everything goes and turns out along the way. We are back, and I put in some brown, and we're gonna go ahead and just take our lure and go from the top and darken down the spine just like that, and also go along the sides. Just like that. So there we've got the first half pretty much done with our brown, and now I'll go ahead and take the front. So now we'll just check if it aligns. So that is pretty much what we're going for, and I'll let this dry and then we'll get back with the next color. We're also going to do a very bright orange belly today, so stick around if you want to see how the look turns out right at the end and look at it in the water tank. So let's see what we get. So everything is dry. We're now gonna go ahead and grab our gold and take our lure and add a nice golden lateral line to where the brown is about, and so that's gonna be the golden lateral line. We're gonna go up towards the top with some bronze then in the next step. It's gonna be the gold for us. It is very interesting to see actually how painting big lures is different to painting smaller lures, because you've got a lot more surface to cover, a lot more place to play around with colors, and I actually mainly do small lures, so we'll see how this one turns actually out, and otherwise we'll see if I need a little bit more practice with bigger lures, and we'll get there, I'm pretty sure. So that's gonna be the gold for the back part. Now we'll go ahead, let that dry nicely. I'll spray this a little bit more empty, and then we'll actually add in some bronze and make a gold bronze mix to actually make a color transition towards the top, and see how that actually looks once we add it to our bait. I've added the bronze gold mix, and we'll go ahead, grab our tail, and just make a nice little transition there. We want the gold still to come out, but we also want it to go into the brown that we have sprayed before. So we'll set that to the side, grab our head, because you see the color transition is quite strong right here, and we just blend it in a little bit through adding this bronze metallic color, which makes it a little bit lighter. So that's gonna be it. It's quite reflecting through the light. It actually looks a bit different as I see it than on the video itself, but we'll anyway see that once I have finished everything and show you the outro, because in the outro we've got a different angle of our lure, and it often looks a little bit different to what we see while I airbrush the lures. So now I'll just finish this up, and I'm actually going to go over a little bit over the top, and that's going to be it for the bronze. I'll now go ahead. We're now going to do a little bit something different. I am going to prepare my stencils and glue off some certain areas that we have just got the spots, and we're going to add a little bit of texture and a little bit of a look in some olive green before darkening down the spine with it. Once we've darkened down the spine, we can clean up the belly. We will be using a little bit of a metallic medium and then go over that with the orange, and then we will be pretty much ready for the scale pattern, but you'll anyway see along the video. As I said, we're gonna put in some olive green. I cleaned up the stencil as I would like it to sit, and we're just gonna go ahead and put this on like this and do a light spray of a different optic still. So we'll leave that like that, and I'll go ahead and put this to the side and grab our tail, and we'll do the same on our tail part, starting up here and just like that. Now let that dry. Do it on the other side before actually going over to the scales. And no, before doing the scales, we'll still clean up the belly, and then once we've cleaned up the belly, we'll go ahead and do the scales. So I'll get you guys back once I clean up the belly and we see how this looks. So before actually going ahead and cleaning up the belly, we will still darken down our top with some olive green to clean up any overspray and blend in the olive green that we just added through the stencil. That is going to be the first part with the olive top, and now we'll go ahead, grab our head and do exactly the same. So that is going to be the top part for us. Now we'll let that all set before going over the belly in the next step. As you hear, the compressor is running, and we have got our metallic medium in, and I'll just go ahead and now clean up the belly with a little bit of this metallic medium, as I said, and then we'll be letting that dry and adding a bright orange belly in the next step. So there we go. We'll let that set for now. I'm quite happy with how the transition looks on the first part. Now I'll let this dry a little bit and go ahead and do the tail. So that's gonna be the tail part for us. Just make sure that we've got a nice coverage. And now I'll get everything ready for the orange coat. And once we've got the orange coat, we'll be ready for wrapping it up. As I said, we will be using some loofah material that has got a little bit bigger scales than that what I usually use, so we'll see how that goes. We let everything dry and we added our orange to the airbrush, and now we'll go ahead and add a nice little orange belly. That we're gonna be happy with already. We don't want too much spraying over because the lure is very thin at the front part, so you get automatically some overspray into the white, but we won't mind that much because it will anyway all go under with the scale pattern, because we're gonna try something quite heavy today, because I'm gonna try and make a 3-parted lure design, scale design, so everything's anyway going to be a bit underneath of the scales themselves. So that's gonna be our back part. So we've got this bright flash, and we'll see how that actually turns out underneath the scales and underneath everything, because as I said, we're gonna be doing a normal frontal spray with silver, then we will be going from the back forward with some black, and in the last step we will actually take our metallic medium and go from the front towards the back of the bait, and through that you've got 3 areas of where the paint starts sitting, and I hope for a better optic of my scales, and it is easier if you use a bigger mesh if you want something like that. So we'll see how it actually turns out and if it actually works as I want it to, and if I'm patient enough. So stick around, I'll get everything prepared for the scale pattern and we'll straight away get into it. Well, as you can see, we have pretty much prepared the loofah and scale pattern. It isn't completely even because it is very flexible, so we'll try and get better with that, but I don't want to struggle around longer. I actually want to finish this build. We filled up some silver, and as you see through adding these clips, it is a little bit unbalanced, so I put this on the back side, and we're just going to go ahead and now go from the front and give it the first color of silver. And once that is done, we'll be doing the other side, and then we'll be changing direction of the spray conus to see if we can get a better effect. So that's going to be the first side. I'll now turn it around, and then once I start with the next color, I'll get you guys back and we'll see what we are able to make with this kind of spraying technique. So we've added our black and changed the spraying angle, and now we'll just go ahead that's going to be that angle. Now we'll let that dry a little bit, and then I'll put on the metallic medium from the other direction, and then I hope to have a little bit of a different optic once we reveal the scales. So if you're interested, stick around. So now I actually laid it down, and we're gonna go at a very steep angle. Just about like that. We'll let that dry, swap over to the other side, and once that's done, I'll get you guys back for the reveal. We're back. This hopefully should be dry, and I'll straight away unwrap our parcel and see what we were able to create. So as you see, it is a completely different look to the scales, and I'm pretty sure they will come out quite nicely under the clear coat. I see we scruffed up the color a little bit here, so I'll be doing a little bit of touch up right there. And now I'll just unwrap this one and see how this one looks. But actually that with the different angles works quite well. As you see, you get a darker front, a lighter back, and that is what we're going for. So I'll set this off, clean it up a little bit because of that little mark that we made with these clips. I'm not the biggest fan of these clips, but I was struggling, as I said, so we'll try and maybe do it with these in the future because they are a little bit gentler to the paint. And then I'll get you guys back once we glue in the eyes and do the fin stencil first. So let's see how it looks at the end. So as I said in the last video, I printed a new stencil for the fins, and we'll just go ahead with our black. Darken it down a little bit, not completely, and then we will go ahead, take it like that, use our detail stencil, and now that I've got a new stencil, it is a lot easier to actually place it where we want it and cover up what we just did. So that's gonna be the detail part, and we have added a fin to our lure. I've got different stencils I might try out with this lure because I don't know if I like this one too much. But as I said, it's anyway one of the prototypes just to see how much the weight changes as well once everything is on the clear coat, the hardware. Well, with the hardware I tested it already, but the paint layers, everything. So I'll now go ahead, do it on the other side, and then we'll take a look at it under the clear coat. So as you see, it is a very metallic lure today, and now I'll just go ahead and add a drop of super glue for our eyes. And this is about how it will look. The clear coat is still going to change a little bit of the optic itself. Now let that dry, then I'll show you guys how it looks under the clear coat. I'll just try quickly. Okay, now the different modes of the lamp, that maybe it shows a bit more what we actually are working with, but doesn't really seem like it shows what it actually looks like if you've got it in person. But I'll see how the clear coat changes it and take you guys with, and then we'll head out in the outro once it is done. We'll still be demolding tails in the following steps anyway, but you'll anyway see. So while I've still got you guys here, I'll straight away go ahead and demold our tail and show you guys how the demolding process works and how well they cast. I'm still trying to find out the best way for getting rid of any bubbles. There's a little bit of silicone on this screw, so it's a bit stuck, but I'll just slowly turn it off because there are still some air bubbles in the form. Sometimes the last tails really worked well because I took a syringe needle and went down the form and made sure that there are no bubbles in. So we'll see if that worked another time, then I can anyway show you that as well once it works. As you see, I've also got two molds that I put next to each other. It works well. If you've got longer screws, you can actually put even more next to each other and cast more tails at once. I sadly just had these by hand, so I was only able to put two molds next to each other, but as I said, it is unlimited. And now we'll go ahead and grab one of these and just slowly pry open the mold, and as you see, this is going to be the brown tail, and it casted really well. The surface is nice and clean, so we are quite happy with how that turned out. Let's see the second one. There aren't really a lot of e-bubbles anyway, and the second one also worked perfectly. So you can clean up these edges, and then you have got two tails. I use a casting silicone with a shore hardness of 15 because it isn't too soft. It withstands quite a lot, and you really have a great tail for these baits or any other baits that you are doing. So if you're interested in the molding process, maybe drop a comment and I can show you guys how I make my silicone molds for the tails or soft baits. And now we'll head over into the clear coating and outro, so see you guys soon. So now let's take a look at how the scale pattern and the lure looks under a clear coat. So as you see, we lose a little bit of the glistening, but that doesn't disturb us too much because it was anyway very much. So that is gonna be how it looks, and I'll get you guys back for the outro where we take a look at the entire bait built together with tail and everything. Hi guys, and welcome back to the outro. The bait is finished. I put in the tail, and this was one of the more challenging baits, I would say, but we've got a nicely freely swinging swim bait. I'll show you guys. I hope it focuses. I really like how it turns out. I've also prepared a bigger water tank because it's a bigger lure, and we're just gonna chuck it in. I've got gloves on that I don't mess up the clear coat because I'm not too sure if it's fully hardened yet, but I don't have experience with bigger baits, so we're just gonna take a look, and I'll see how I can do this. Up. So let's try and so as you see, it is just floating at the surface and it slowly rises. So it is a slow rising swim bait. I am really looking forward to see how the action is on it. And this is quite heavy. Put it to the side. So I'm really excited to see how the action is on it. It's really cool. I'm gonna do some variations on it, maybe a blue and green one with a white tail, and just things like that. Try and improve how I weighted it because I actually had to add weight holes, so I'm gonna change the design a little bit, and also with the joint, I might make the joint pocket a little bit bigger, but then this lure should be quite cool and easy to make. And I hope that the action works well. We'll maybe see in the following days. I might go on the weekend, maybe next weekend, to a lake and actually test it in quieter waters to see if we have to move the slot of the joint a little bit further back. So we'll see that and just see how it goes. So this was the first big swim bait I actually made and had a rubber tail in. And I'm really glad that you guys took the time and went on this journey with me. And we'll see how it progresses with time. And keep safe. We'll see each other for next week's video. I wish you guys a great one. Cheers.